5 True Scary Horror Stories. Our first story comes from a guy who was just trying to enjoy a night out with his Marine buddy in Ciudad Juarez. They were having a great time, drinking and dancing the night away, when suddenly, our storyteller finds himself separated from his friend and caught up in a riot. Before he knows it, he's being beaten by cops and thrown into a Mexican jail cell with a bunch of hardened criminals. Talk about a night gone wrong. But here's the crazy part. The next morning, when they finally let him out, he discovers that his wallet and passport have been stolen. Can you imagine being stuck in a foreign country with no money and no way to get home? It's the stuff of nightmares, I tell you. Next up, we've got a tale from a student who went on a trip to Singapore with their university. Everything was going great until last night, when they decided to hit up the clubs on Clark Quay. Our storyteller gets completely smashed, and wakes up the next morning to a phone call from the police. Turns out, 2 of their friends had been arrested for accidentally wandering into a highly restricted military area. Now, I don't know about you, but the idea of being interrogated by foreign police while nursing a hangover sounds like my own personal hell. But here's the thing, as scary as that situation was, it's nothing compared to what could have happened if they hadn't been caught. Our third story comes from a woman who was working as a cleaning lady in a big, beautiful mansion on Lake Michigan. At first, everything seemed great, the house was gorgeous, the pay was good, and she had the place all to herself most of the time. But then, strange things started happening. Doors would open and close on their own, music would turn on and off, and she started to feel like someone was watching her. One day, she even heard a knock coming from inside the walls. Talk about creepy. But here's the real kicker. When she finally worked up the courage to tell her boss what was happening, they didn't seem surprised at all. Turns out, the house had a reputation for being haunted, and the owners just couldn't seem to keep a cleaning lady for more than a few weeks at a time. Can you blame them? Story number 4 takes us to the great state of Texas, where one of our listeners had a close encounter with something truly bizarre. They were driving home late one night when they saw what looked like a man running on the side of the highway. But as they got closer, they realized that this was no ordinary man. He was completely naked, oily and black, with smooth skin that glistened in the moonlight. And when he dropped down to all fours and started running like an animal, our storyteller knew they were dealing with something truly otherworldly. They passed the creature and locked eyes with it for a moment, taking in its flat face, big eyes, and prominent canines. And then, just like that, it was gone. Vanished into the night like a ghost. Can you imagine seeing something like that on a dark, lonely highway? It's the kind of thing that would haunt your dreams for years to come. And finally, we've got a story that proves that sometimes, the scariest things in life are the ones that hit closest to home. A woman and her sister were staying with their grandparents in a small Midwestern town when they started noticing strange things happening around the house. They would hear footsteps and movement in the garage, see shadowy figures outside their windows, and even catch glimpses of a man in a baseball cap watching them from the trees. But every time they told their grandparents what was happening, they were brushed off and told not to worry. That is, until one night, when the sisters decided to make a late-night run to McDonald's. They were only gone for 20 minutes, but when they got back, they heard footsteps running behind them as they walked up the driveway. They ran inside, locked the doors, and called the police, but by the time they arrived, the man was gone. And that's when they found out the truth. This wasn't the first time he had been spotted lurking around the house, watching the young women who lived there. Can you imagine finding out that you've been stalked for weeks, maybe even months, without even realizing it? It's the kind of thing that would make you question everything you thought you knew about your own safety and security. So there you have it, 5 more true scary stories to keep you up at night. If you like this video, be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell so you never miss an upload. Leave us a comment with your own scary encounters, and thanks for tuning in to Scaretastic.